Good morning, all of you. This is Juliet this side. Welcome back to the session on AZ-900. Fine, I hope you're all set for today's part 2 of AZ-900. So let us get started for the day. So before we get started, let us do a very quick recap. Let's take a couple of minutes to do a quick recap on what we discussed yesterday. So we discussed about the basics of cloud. We saw the various features or various services that cloud is offering to us. We also discussed about the various deployment models like the private cloud, public cloud, and then the hybrid cloud. We also discussed about the various services that Azure was offering to us, the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Then we discussed about some of the core services of Azure. We discussed about some of the infrastructure services. We discussed about virtual machines. And we also discussed about other services like the network services. We discussed about load balancer. We discussed about virtual network gateway. And we discussed about some of the storage services, your storage account, which is nothing but your blob storage. We also discussed a little bit about some of the database services like Azure SQL database, the Cosmos DB, and the migration service. Then we discussed a little bit about the AI and AI services like the IoT Hub, IoT Central. We also discussed about Azure Machine Learning Studio, and we saw the difference between a machine learning studio and a machine learning service. And then we also discussed other services like your Azure DevOps, right? So that was pretty much we discussed yesterday. So today is going to be the continuation of yesterday, wherein we are going to discuss a little bit about security, privacy, compliance, and trust. So this is what we are going to discuss today. So we all know, what a virtual network is. In fact, we created a virtual network yesterday, and we also saw, how those IPs, how we are, allocating the IPs or deciding the size of a network during the design phase and all. So now that we all know how a virtual network gets created, so we all know how a virtual machine gets created. We all know how a storage account is created. Today, we are going to see how we can leverage various security controls over these resources for these resources. So this is what we are going to discuss today. So we are going to discuss about firewall concepts, security groups, identity, the security center, and also some of the policies and governance that Azure offers us. Fine. See, a lot of organizations are already on cloud. So that is what we discussed yesterday. So the use of cloud computing has become pervasive, and to an extent, several organizations, irrespective of the size, are adopting to a cloud first approach. Because they're adopting to a cloud first approach, and so are the challenges related to security is also increasing. So there are a lot of challenges with respect to security. So, and we also hear about a lot of data breaches that occur due to targeted attacks or some human errors or application vulnerabilities or whatsoever. But the major reason for all these are nothing but they're because of some poor security standards. Because I mean, today when you see, it is like people get that feeling, or sometimes organizations think because we are putting our data on cloud, it is the cloud service provider's responsibility to take care of our data and keep it highly secure. Yes, of course, it is our responsibility to take care of the data and then keep it secure. All those are fine, but at the same time, Azure also offers us n number of security controls which you can add on top of the securities or on top of the security layer that Azure is offering to you. So it is very important that you leverage these security controls, right? See, we give you the basic security, but it is your responsibility to decide, you know, uh, I mean, allow your responsibility to decide, from which IPs the request should be allowed, and from which IPs the request should be denied, or should I have a firewall? If so, then what should be the firewall configurations? So all this, it is your responsibility to decide, and all the necessary controls, okay, that caters to your requirement are present on Azure, but you should, use those controls to ensure that your application or your data is highly secure. So here, when you look at this pictorial representation here, you see this data, and then on top of that we have our application, then we have a compute layer, network, perimeter, identity. So these are the, various layers where you could have your security imposed. So you could have some security, done at a data layer, and then you can have, in order to keep your application safe from, vulnerabilities. So you need to, ensure that when you write the code, you design it in such a way that, you implement all the OS principles, and even at compute. So we'll discuss some of the, security controls that can be leveraged at each of these layers, right? And a lot of us, have this question in mind: is it really safe to put my data on cloud? So let me rephrase it: is it really, or is Microsoft Azure really secure? Yes, of course. See, Azure is highly secure. Azure offers you continuous monitoring, and also a number of certifications and compliance. So Azure is, actually the only cloud service that offers continuous, service health monitoring. And we have something called as an Azure Security Center that makes it easy to tailor the security solutions to your business needs. All right. And also, this Microsoft Azure adheres to rigorous guidelines to maintain the compliance, and receive certifications like ISO 20001 and all these. So we'll be looking at it. So before I walk you through this, let me just quickly show you one more thing, and then we'll come back to this slide. See, yesterday, remember, we discussed, sorry, okay, we discussed about virtual network, right? So we discussed about virtual network yesterday. So assume this is a VNet, and inside the virtual network, you can have n number of subnets. So again, the number of subnet depends on the size of your VNet. And let's assume I have few subnets here, and inside each of these subnets, you will have different virtual machines, right? So this is how it is organized. So you have different virtual machines inside your subnet. All right. Now, you want to decide, or you feel, uh, only, a specific set of IP addresses should be allowed to access this particular subnet. So you have a requirement wherein you say only, IP that is ranging from, some 0.000 to 128, 128, 128, 128 should be allowed to access this particular subnet. Or you may have another requirement. There might be a port 1433. Yes, there is a port 1433. You do not want anybody to access, or any request should not come for the port 1433. Those requests should be denied. So you have several requirements you want to allow, you know, um, maybe you can say, yeah, you want to allow only a particular IP. Okay. Uh, you want to allow only a particular IP range. Maybe you want to deny any request that is coming for the port 1433, or you know anything, or you want to, even allow port 80, or, let's assume you have some network requirements, and you have this requirement only for that, so you have that requirement only for this particular subnet and not for the other subnets. All right. So what you can actually do is, we have something called as an NSG, which we call it as network security group. So this network security group is nothing but, it is a collection of rules. So basically, this is one rule, this is another rule, and this is another rule. Okay. So you create different rules, under this NSG, and you attach that particular NSG to your subnet. Got it? So any request that is coming to your subnet checks the rules that you have defined inside this NSG, and then those traffic is either allowed or they are denied. So that is how it works. So this is nothing but it is like an ACL. Okay, it's like a access control list. All right. So network security group is nothing but it is a set of rules. And again, when you have these set of rules, there are again two set of rules that can be defined for your NSG. So you can have inbound security rules, and you can also have some sort of outbound security rules. So you can define the incoming traffic, and then you can define the outgoing traffic also. So you can have separate rules for your incoming and then for your I mean outgoing traffic. All right. Now let's assume my subnet 2 has another set of requirements. So they need a different they have different network rules or network policy. So you create another NSG. Maybe I name this as NSG2 and this is your NSG1. Okay. If your subnet 2 has the same requirement as that of the NSG1, then you can use the same NSG1 for both the subnets. Got it? Now, let us assume that there is an application or there is this particular VM and this particular VM and this particular VM and this particular VM. Let's assume. So these VMs belong to different subnets. So only for these VMs, you have a different port requirement. Okay, you have a different port requirement, but they all belong to separate, subnets. So you cannot define, a separate. You do not want to create separate NSGs only for these machines. So what you can do is you can create something called as an ASG, which is nothing but your application security group. So in that case, this VM, this VM, this VM, and this VM can be grouped together under an ASG and you define the rules there. Got it? Now, these NSGs that you create can be attached to a subnet, or you can create NSGs for the NIC, network interface card of a VM also. So you can create a separate NSG for individual VMs also. Okay. Uh, or you can create it for a subnet. So when you create, so all these you will have to take care at a design phase. You'll have to see, you do not want too many NSGs also. You need to plan this quite well. All right. Fine. So whatever I told you, it is something that is happening at a subnet level or at an NIC, network interface card level. Now, what if I want to restrict the traffic that is come at a network level itself? In that case, we keep a firewall here. All right. So let me keep a firewall here. This I call it as an Azure firewall. This is an Azure firewall. Okay. So this firewall, any traffic that is going to come from the public internet will go through this firewall and then it reaches the appropriate destination. So you can configure a firewall also. In fact, unlike your NSGs, these firewalls are a little bit more, effective. They can automatically scale up and down. In case of more traffic, it can scale up, and you do not have to do anything. You only configure a firewall and you create and you define the routing also. Okay. So you can create a firewall wherein this firewall is lying on the network. Now this is one thing. Another thing is, uh, let's assume let's assume there are some attacks that can happen, come from even outside, which I call it as a perimeter. So some attacks, like your DDoS, which I call it as distributed denial of service. So it is a type of attack that floods the network with traffic, thereby preventing your request from reaching the right destination. So in order to prevent those type of attack, you will have to purchase or you will have to get a standard DDoS plan and then have it attached with your network. Got it? See, what I'm trying to say here is we all know how to create a VNet, but creating an NSG by default, when you create a VNet, okay, it is not going to allow a port, it is not going to enable any of the ports. Okay, it's not, it is your responsibility to create the appropriate NSGs, your responsibility to create the ASGs if required. You have to create these firewalls and you will have to create this DDoS plan and attach it with your network. So Azure gives you, a wide range of security controls. You see, you will have to look at leveraging these security controls and keep your network safe. By default, it is not going to allow any traffic inside or from outside, except there are few default things which we'll see. uh, but it is your responsibility to take care of it. Got it? Are you all with me? Okay. So now let's look at the shared responsibility. See, when it comes to your on premise, everything is our responsibility. Okay, so let me rule this out. Let's come back to the IaaS. So this shared responsibility, uh, this is the shared responsibility. And when you go for the infrastructure as a service offering, see, when I say shared responsibility here, I'm talking only, so this chart that you're seeing here is only with respect to security. Okay. So anyways, the data center and network and host is completely provided by Azure itself, so they take care of their security. But when it once the virtual machine is created and it is given to you, it is your responsibility to ensure that all your defenders and endpoints, so all these are configured, so you'll have to take care of it. And sometimes you will have to see that the patches are updated. So everything is your responsibility. Who should be accessing that machine, whom should be given access, what request should be allowed, denied, so everything has to be taken care by you. And then comes the platform as a service offering. So we know, so in platform as a service offering, you have access only to the platform, not to the infrastructure. So hence all those are taken care by Microsoft. And sometimes we can also get some controls, not for all the services. There are certain services which is a platform as a service offering, but still it gives the customers some control. You can decide what should be allowed. All right, some especially services like app service environment and uh, SQL, managed instance, so which is not covered here. But for those type of services, it can, responsibility can also be taken by the customer if required. And now when it comes to SaaS, it is a software as a service offering. That is your O365 and all. So wherein you're not going to modify any of the applications, so that is taken care. So once you get that SaaS on your platform, then it is your responsibility to take care of all your access and all those. Okay. Now, so I'm not going to repeat this anyway. So I already told you about the firewall. So when it comes to firewall, there is also a firewall that comes along with your application, Azure Application Gateway. So yesterday, if you remember, did we discuss about Application Gateway yesterday? So I think we did that, right? So in case of Application Gateway, if you remember, I was mentioning this. If you have some applications, if you have some applications running in this machine, I mean application instances, I said you could configure a WAF and put your application behind the WAF. So WAF is nothing but web application firewall, which is given to you through the application gateway, which is again another type of load balancer. All right. Now, so this is what I was also telling you. In order to prevent from DDoS attack, we have something called as a DDoS plan, which you will purchase it and then you will attach it with your network. All right. So this ensures that your network is not affected by any of these, attacks. All right. And then this is the NSG, which I was telling you. You can create your NSGs are nothing but the set of rules where you can define your inbound and outbound rules. And there are some default rules, and we'll talk about that. And application security group, I just mentioned. If certain VMs belonging to different subnets have different port requirements, then you can make use of this application security group. Now, let me just quickly walk you through the portal. So when you see here, this VNet 543 is a VNet that we created yesterday, right? So this is the VNet that we created yesterday. And let me, yes, you can go to this diagram and see how your VNet actually looks like. So this will take a couple of minutes to load. That's all right. So what I'll do is I'm going to create a network security group. I'm going to create a network security group, and I'm going to attach this network security group with your subnet. So let me go here, create a resource, search for NSG, search for network security group, create. So this is, see, this is the VNet structure. Okay, I just have a VNet, and there is a subnet inside that VNet, and the name of the subnet is default subnet. Now, I'm going to create NSG under the same resource group. What is a resource group? It is a logical container, right? We discussed yesterday. And let me give a name for this NSG. Let me give it as NSG543. Give some name. And this NSG must be created in the same region as that of your virtual network. So where is this? This is in East US. So I'm going to create this network security group also in East US. And then review plus create. Let me quickly create it. So this is a separate resource that I'm creating. So once it is created, I will have to associate this network security group with the VNet. Yeah, it is created. So let me open this. Okay, see, this is the NSG that I just created. And when you look at it, um, let me just zoom it. Okay, see, you see two sets of rules here. One is your inbound security rule, and the other one is your outbound security rules, right? And you already see three rules here. So these are the three rules that gets created along with your NSG by default. These are some default rules. You can see here by default, the subnets inside the VNets can communicate with each other, and any traffic that is coming from a load balancer can communicate with a VNet. And other than that, all right. See, anyway, I have given here everything is denied. Then how is it going to allow these two rules, right? Basically, let's assume that you do not want these rules. Maybe you're designing a network wherein you feel these rules are something that you do not require. So in that case, what you will do is you cannot go and delete these rules, but you have a provision to create a new rule with a higher priority number. So let me go to this. Let me okay, go to this inbound security rules. See, these are the three rules that are created by default. And let me click on this add, and I'll create a rule with a higher priority number. So lesser the number, higher the priority. So here you will have to define the source. So where the traffic is coming from. Let me keep it as any. And you want to specify a particular port range, you can specify it. Like, I want only those requests that are coming from this particular port to be allowed inside my subnet. Then in that case, you can give. So I'm just giving it as a star so that it applies to any port number. And destination, I want to allow 80 HTTP request. Okay. And priority number, I'll keep it as 100. In that case, 100, this particular rule that I'm creating now takes precedence over the 65 500. All right. So let me name this port as HTTP port. HTTP port and add. So in this way, you can add multiple rules. And similarly, what should be the outgoing traffic? So if you have something, you just add it here also. So now that I created an NSG and I also just added one single rule. All right. So one rule is added here, but is it attached with my network or a subnet? Not yet, right? So let me go here. So towards the left, do you see subnets? So you see subnets here towards the left. So let me click on the subnet and I have an option to associate it. Associate with what? Associate with this particular network and this particular subnet. Then I click on OK. So now the rules that I have created applies to this particular subnet. Got it? Okay. So that is how your NSG works, and it's the same thing that we discussed. So thus we have seen how you can uh, create your NSGs, how you can so ASG is similar to this. I don't want to show that ASG again. Maybe that you can try it out. Next comes your identity services. Identity excuse me. See, when we talk about identity, we talk about two main things. One is your authentication, another one is your authorization. So, authentication means you're confirming your own identity process, your own identity, right? Or you can say it is the process of verifying who you are. Okay, are you the right person to access a particular resource? And when it comes to authorization, it means granting access to the system, or you can call it as a process of verifying what you have access. See, you are the right person, you have been identified, but do you really have, or are you really authorized to access this particular resource? And if so, what sort of access do you have? Do you have a read access or do you have a write access? What permission do you have? That defines your authorization. So Azure has seamless features with which you can configure authentication and authorization for your application easily. We have a lot of features for that. So in order to leverage that, first of all you should understand what an Azure Active Directory is, right? What is an Azure Active Directory? So this, we are hearing this for the first time since yesterday. So before getting to know what an Azure Active Directory is, what is an Active Directory or what is a Windows Active Directory? Forget about Azure Active Directory. What do you think is your Windows Active Directory? See, we all have Active Directory in our organization, right? But what exactly it is? Where do we use that? See, let me just take a minute to, I'm not going to teach you Windows Active Directory. Let me do a very quick comparison here. Your Windows Active Directory, where do we use that? You use that to manage your users and groups, and then you use that to manage computers, right? And then you use that to manage applications. And apart from this, we also, these are the basic tasks. But apart from this, we also have other advanced features like your ADDS, that is your domain services, okay, your group policies, configurations, and all those. Then we have ADFS, federation services, and yeah, we have certificate services, right? So we have a lot more other services. So when I say AD, it is not a single service. It is a collection of services. All right. So this AD can be used to efficiently manage all your on-premise resources. Now comes your Azure AD, and with your Azure AD, with Azure AD also, you should be able to manage your users and groups. We have a provision for that. You can manage your computers. So you can manage your computers. So in order to manage your computers, there are two things. We say manage computers, but in order, so we have something called as an AD join, using with which you can manage your company owned devices, all your office laptops and all. Then we have something called as a device management, with which you can manage your BYOD. You bring your own device, you all must be aware of that. And then, apart from this, you also have services to manage your applications. So here we talk about integration with your SaaS, or we have something called as an application proxy and all those. Then we don't have the usual domain services, certificate services and all. So these are the basic services. And apart from this, one of the major reasons is, if you are a part of an Azure AD, you can leverage the SaaS offerings of Azure, of Microsoft. So all your O365, your Dynamics CRM, all the SaaS, they are actually offered through they are all SaaS, and the SaaS is something that is linked with your Azure Active Directory. So if you're a member of SaaS, you easily get access to all the SaaS offerings of Microsoft. Got it? So it is for that reason, we have actually started to leverage Azure AD. You cannot say Azure AD is like your Windows AD for managing, more of machines that are on premise. It is machines, printers, and your shares, not like that. So the purpose of AD is to leverage the SaaS offerings uh, easily. So if your organization is using more of, Microsoft products and all, so this Azure AD plays a vital role there. All right, and that is not the only thing. We also have other features along with it. Now, said this. Uh, I said you can access the SaaS services of Azure if you are an user of Azure AD. Now let's assume that you belong to an on-premise AD. Your organization is having an on-premise Windows Active Directory. It is having an on-premise Windows AD. Now your organization feels, for certain access to certain resources, they need a Windows AD. At the same time, they would also like to leverage some of the SaaS services, SaaS offerings of Microsoft. So in that case, they need not completely migrate the on-premise AD to Azure. Instead, they can sync the on-premise users with Azure AD. So you maintain your on-premise AD as such. Okay. And you can just sync the users from your on-premise AD to Azure AD. So you're just going to sync the users with Azure AD. So in order to sync the users with Azure AD, we have a tool which we call it as AD Connect. So using this AD Connect, it is possible to sync your users with Azure AD. So in that case, the user still remains an on-premise, and the access to some of the resources which are granted through Windows AD can be continued as it is, and at the same time, with the same set of credentials, they should be able to access the SaaS resources or SaaS offerings of Microsoft. Got it? So AD Connect is it's a it's a very powerful tool to sync the users. All right. And again, let's assume your organization is having a public facing application, maybe something like flipkart.com or amazon.com, wherein you can e-com, some shopping e-shopping application. So wherein a lot of customers register and they purchase things, right? So in that case, what you can do is, we have a different flavor of Active Directory, which we call it as Azure AD B2C. So this is Azure Active Directory business to consumers. Okay. So this is basically for public facing application. So you might wonder, why not the Azure AD only can be used for this? See, Azure AD is more from an organization perspective for employee, management. But this Azure AD B2C is mainly for public facing applications to maintain the customers, because today you might have 100 customers, and over years it can go to millions. And when you have an Azure AD, you can have it automatically increases the storage that is required for to store the data. And not only that, B2C has several policies, like you can configure the sign in page, you can configure the sign up page, you can edit, you can create a profile editing page, and forgot password page, and all this, right? All this can be configured through the Azure AD B2C itself. You need not take care of all these configurations from your applications. These policies can be configured from your Azure AD B2C. Got it? Whereas Azure AD does not give you that feature, because it is more from an employee perspective. Got it? And then we have another flavor of Azure AD, which we call it as B2B. Azure AD B2B. So what is this B2B? Business to business. So this sometimes, right, our organizations might want to give access to their business partner to some of our applications. So in that case, you can uh, you can leverage Azure AD B2B. See, let's assume there is an organization, okay, some organization, and this whatever the salary of the employees is getting credited by some bank. Let's assume there is a some national bank. So all the salary is credited through some national bank. So the organization wants to give access only to the employee details and the employee account details to the Access Bank through one of their portals. Okay, so what they can do is, so their internal application can be accessed by those two or three authorized persons, but we are not going to create a separate set of credentials for them. They could access our internal or the organization's internal application using their own credentials. So we are going to add them as a guest user to our Active Directory. So under such situations, we can go for Azure AD B2B. All right. So we have a lot of rich set of features offered by Azure AD. So see, I have mentioned only a few here. We have a lot more also. Okay, right. So you can configure single sign-on easily through your authentication, and employee sign in to access these resources. This is a normal authentication. You can configure single sign on. And I told you about application management. So we have a lot of things for managing the application. I mentioned about integration with SaaS and application proxy, and this is your Azure AD B2B. And then we have Azure AD B2C, and then device management for managing your BYOD. Okay, is that clear? Are you all with me? See, now again, MFA is something that is not that's not new to you. So Azure also offers you uh, you know MFA, but you can configure MFA very quickly and very easily through the Azure Active Directory. Okay, so this is not going to take much time. So in earlier days, we used to keep a separate server and the configurations, and it takes a lot of time and more maintenance also. But you could leverage this MFA uh, through Azure Active Directory quite easily. Maybe let me just show you something. Let me go to my portal. So here is where your Active Directory is. Towards the left, you have an Azure Active Directory. Let me go to the Active Directory. And so here you can add different users. So I think did I add some? Yeah, I have just created some dummy users here, some test, some John and all. So you can create new users. So creating a new user is quite easy. You just click on this new user. If at all you want to add someone, some new employees joining your organization, you can add it here. But a lot of times we do not, click this button and add it. It is automated. All right. And then you can create groups here, like similar to that of your, distribution list. You can create groups, and then we have, this is for devices. So if at all you have some AD joined machines, you should be able to see here. uh, I don't have any, so we are not seeing it. And this is for your application registration, and this is your AD Connect. Why do we use AD Connect? Why do we use AD Connect? To sync your, on-prem users with your Azure AD, right? So that they can also leverage all the SaaS offerings of Microsoft, right? So AD Connect. So let me go to this AD Connect, and you can download this AD Connect. This needs to be downloaded into the domain controller of your on-premise virtual machine. Sorry, on-premise machine. All right, and so these can be done. And then you can give some custom domain, and we have some security features maybe that is not required for you at this point. And for these users, if at all you want to configure an MFA, you just have to click this MFA, and then you can just enable it. All right. So you select the users for whom MFA needs to be enabled, and then you just enable it. So it is already enabled for John, but then it is not enabled for Juliet and the other test user. All right. So you can just easily enable it with few clicks. And some of the operations like group policies and all those, we do not have that as a direct offering here, but that can be done through your O365 Intunes. All right. So that is more, that comes under your O365. And most of the time we even manage this Active Directory. We have an Active Directory admin portal, aad.portal.azure.com, or you can manage it from your O365 itself. Okay, but for huge organization, it is managed through O365. Got it? Maybe I'll just show you this. See, there is an application that is hosted here. Maybe you can also check it out. I have hosted a simple application here. This is a simple web app. So I'm just putting this link. Uh, Sorry. Okay. See, it is HTTPS WIT with 654.azurewebsites.net. You can try accessing it, not a problem. HTTPS, let me just zoom it for you. Okay, HTTPS WIT 654.azurewebsites.net. Okay, so you should be able to access it. So once you access this application, it is accessible to all. Okay, it's just accessible to all. You can see here, it's with testing the Azure App Service, it works. So it is a very simple, application. It's just an HTML, you can say, that I hosted it using this app service. So this is the one, all right? So you can try accessing it. Now, what if I do not want you to access it? I just want to give some authentication. I feel only those users who are belonging to my Azure Active Directory should be able to access it. So in that case, what I can do is I can configure that authentication very quickly. So let me just go here. Are you all able to access? At least some of you able to access this? You should be able to access it. Maybe you can, uh, try accessing it. Um, okay, fine. And let me now go here. I'm going to configure authentication. So I can configure authentication in multiple ways. Okay. So I go to this authentication and I say authentication is on. Instead of allow anonymous users, I'm going to say login with. Azure Active Directory. And now let me go to this Azure Active Directory and I'll just give Express for now. Express. Okay, fine. So this creates an object and that object will be linked. This creates an object in the Active Directory and that Active Directory is then linked to my application, which indirectly means uh, only those users of Azure Active Directory should be able to access. Can you try accessing the application now? Are you all able to access it? So you should not be able to access it now. Okay, because I mean, if you're able to access it, just try refreshing the page and try again. So it should prompt for username and password. All right. Now, for me, it anyway allows access because anyway I belong to the same Active Directory. So that is the reason I asked you to check it. You should not be able to access it. Okay. See, it is prompting for sign in now. Now let me give an accept. Now I should be able to access, but ideally you should not be able to access because you do not belong to this particular Active Directory. All right. Fine. Fine. See, so we saw a little bit about network security and we also saw a little bit about Azure Active Directory, right? Now, there is something called as a security center. Okay, so this is one of the most important functionality that we have on Azure. So this Azure Security Center, what it does is it automatically collects all the data from your Azure resources and it analyzes the security of your data. Got it? uh, like it does security health monitoring not only for the resources that are residing on Azure but also for the resources that are there on premise. You can in fact leverage the security center for your on premise applications also, right? So let me just show you how this actually looks like. Let me go to the portal. Let me go to the portal. And now towards the left, we have an option called Security Center. So let me open the Security Center. And so when I open the Security Center, so you see a secure score here, some regulatory compliance, Azure Defender, inventory, and all, right? So we have something called as a secure score. So wherein my point here is 24.74. Let me just zoom this for you. So you see here 24.74, right? Uh, Fine. So let me just go back. Okay. Sorry. So you see the secure score is 24.74. So this shows, are you really following the security standards or the best security practices? So higher the number, okay, uh, you know, you should reach those, you can see here, right? So it is completed, of which only 4 out of 14 are compliant. The rest are not following the security standards. Got it? So let me open it. Let me open the secure score. See, it says 25 out of 56 points. So it should be actually 56 out of 56. You have followed all the best security practices. Okay. But this is approximately 25 of 56 points. But why? Why is it 25? Where am I lagging? So let me go here and you can open these recommendations and see where exactly you're lagging. Okay. See, it says this is 8 points. And what is it? Let me open this and see. So it says management, it says internet facing virtual machine should be protected with network security, and that is done. Management port should be closed on your virtual machines. So this is one recommendation it is giving me. And another thing is management port of virtual machine should be protected with just in time access. See, for accessing the virtual machines, we have opened the port 3389. Okay, only if port 3389 is open, you can do the RDP. But if that port is going to be opened 24 by 7, there are, I mean, it could, face certain, attacks or whatever. So what you can do is we have something called as a just in time access. You will have to configure that. So wherein you can specify that this port should be open only for 2 hours or only for 1 hour. You can specify that. And so various recommendations are given here. So you can open and see what are the various recommendations, and you can fix it. Some of them you can just quickly fix it from here only. So here it says vulnerability assessment should be enabled on your servers. So let me open this. See, there are two servers and for which vulnerability assessment is not enabled. So you can select it and you can click this remediate and you can remediate it from here itself. But everything cannot be remediated from here. Certain things can be quickly remediated from here, and other things you'll have to go to the appropriate resource and take the steps. Got it? And and you can configure some security alerts, and if at all you have some alerts, it should get listed here. See, if at all you are monitoring some machines and there has been an attack, you should be able to see those details here at what time and all the details along with it. And security center can then be connected with your Azure Sentinel and all those. All right, so that's what your security does. So it is basically, you can use it to detect, assess, and then diagnose. All right. Um, but security center is not going to, do the remediation for you automatically. So it is your responsibility to. It can only give you recommendations. It will just try to pull all the resource information and then it gives you all the recommendations. But it is your responsibility to perform the appropriate remediation. All right. Then comes your Azure Key Vault. So this is another security control. See, you all might have developed some application, or at least you might have, worked on some sort of connectivity. See, when it comes to application, and let's assume your application is accessing a database, where exactly do you store the keys, or where exactly do you store the connection string? Your application is accessing the database and you have those server names and credentials stored somewhere, right? Where do you think you store that? Where do you usually, where do you usually store your connections? So you will be able to store it. Okay. Where do we store it? Any idea where you can store your connections? So we usually store it inside the configuration file of our application, right? And we don't embed it directly in the application, but then we store it in the configuration file. But I may not want to store it there, so I may want to store it in an encrypted way somewhere, or in an encrypted somewhere in an hardware security module, and it is highly encrypted because it is a highly sensitive and all those. So we have a lot of services for that on premise, but on premise we have a lot of challenges on accessing those keys and all. So we have Azure is offering something we call it as an Azure Key Vault. So Key Vault is a service using which you can store your passwords, you can store your encryption keys, you can store your certificates in an encrypted way. All right, and it is for your secrets key management. So let me show you how this can be done. So to create a key vault, you can just go to this create a resource, just give your key, and you can click on this key vault and you can get it created. All right. So, but I already have a key vault that is created. So let me open the key vault that is already created. And so this is the key vault that is already created. So now what I want is, okay. So you can store your keys, secrets, or certificates. So let me open secrets, and let's assume I want to store my database connection string. So I click on this generate or import. Okay. So I'm giving this manually. Maybe I keep it as DB connection string, and the value, I give some value. Okay. And this is optional. You can set the activation date when this key should become active and set the expiration date, and you can enable it. And now let me give a create. So this creates a key. this creates a vault. So your key is now, your secret is now stored in the key vault. But then how do you access it from your application? So in order to access it from your application, we have a API. We have a secret identifier here. So using this, okay, so using this, it is possible, using this, it is possible for you to access the key. Got it? Uh, Now, let's assume you want to, create another version of the same key. So you can just open it and create a new version of it. So wherein the DB connection string remains the same, and you want to give something new and then create it. So you have multiple versions of the same key. So but then both the keys will have different APIs for accessing it. All right. So in this way, your key remains in a secure way inside your key vault. So you can store your encryption keys, and you can store your certificates and all those. And a lot of places, like when you created a VM yesterday, you know uh, by default those disks are actually encrypted. So where are those encrypted keys stored? So they're encrypted. We did not encrypt, but Azure by default it encrypts. And even those keys are stored inside a key vault that is controlled by Azure. But if I am doing an explicit encryption over my disks, then I will have to create a key vault and then store it here. All right. So that talks about our key vault. And then comes your Azure Information Protection Service. So what is this information protection? This is not something new. You all might have encountered this. See, when you open your documents, or when you open your mail, Outlook mail, you may see some confidentiality, general, public, and all those, right? Labels. So with it is similar to that. It is the same thing. So this Azure Information Protection, right? It helps to classify your data based on the complexity. Based on the sensitivity. All right. So it gives you the provision to configure your own policies, to classify the data, label the data, protect the data, and everything. So whatever, depending on the sensitivity of the data, you can do that. So these configurations can be done either automatically using rules, or it can be done by users, manually by the users, or you can do it in both the ways together. See, sometimes, right, when yeah, I mean when we do this configuration, you can configure it in such a way that when someone is putting some credit card information, on credit card information, entering some credit card information, and when he hits on the save button, you can give a tooltip there. Okay, saying, hey, your some sensitive data is present in this file. Do you want to protect it, or do you want to save it, have it as a password protected file? So these type of informations or tooltip, you can provide it. So all these, you can do it. And then comes advanced threat protection. So this is something that does not belong to Azure. Okay, it is handled separately through another portal. Okay, so this is not handled from the Azure portal. This has a separate portal. So here what we do is, this is mainly for on-premise Active Directory, on-premise AD. See, uh, this is for on-premise AD. So what you do here is, um, it helps your on-premise AD to identify, detect, and investigate all those advanced threats that are happening on the on-premise AD. So what this does is, here you are going to create something like, what do you say? Uh, ATP sensor, correct? So we have an ATP sensor. We have an ATP sensor. There is something called as an ATP sensor. Okay. So what you actually do here is, first of all, as a first step, you will create an ATP instance. Okay, you will create an ATP instance. As a second step, what you will do is, you will attach this ATP instance with your Active Directory, Windows Active Directory, or on-premise Active Directory. So this ATP instance that you have created is attached. Okay, it is attached with your Active Directory. Okay, Windows Active Directory. And then as a third step, you will download this ATP sensor onto the Active Directory. That is nothing but the domain controller. Fourth step, install this downloaded ATP sensor to your domain controller. So once it is installed, what it does is any type of it pulls out all the information from your AD, anything that is related to some threats or some malicious attacks or something that is unusual. So all these are captured by your ATP sensor, and it then sends it to the ATP instance, which is then taken to something you call it as cloud application security, and then it has been we can avoid or based on the report we can see how well it can be handled. Got it? So this is another thing which is outside of the portal, not inside the portal. All right. So we have seen about the security center, we saw about key vault, we saw about information protection, and we also saw about the threat protection. All right. So are you all with me? Okay, so let me continue. See, so far we have seen about creating various resources. Then, so over the last 1 hour, we also discussed about how you can leverage the security controls. Right? Fine. All those are fine. Okay. We are able to create resources. We are able to leverage the security controls and all. Now, a lot of organizations are going towards cloud, and working on cloud is not an unusual thing today. When an organization is giving the employee the privilege to work on cloud, create resources, the organization might also want to ensure that any resources that the employee creates is compliant with the organization's policy. Just because you are given an access, that does not mean you can create anything of your choice when your organization has some fixed set of standards or compliance. So how does the organization ensure that any resource that is created on Azure is compliant with their organization policy? So in order to ensure that, Azure has come up with something which we call it as an Azure policy. There are n number of policies on Azure. Okay, so there are over some 400 policies, and which you can leverage it. And in case you want your own policies, you can of course that create it, but you can also leverage those policies that Azure is offering to you. So we'll see how we can create these policies and ensure that our resources are compliant. So let me go to the portal and let me search for policy here. And do you see policy? Let me open the policy. So this is a view of the policy. Let me go to this assignments, and you should be able to see the various policies here. Sorry. Okay. So I'll go to definitions. Okay. So these are the various policies. Okay. There are various policies here. Let's assume I want to create a policy now. How do I create a policy? So you can go to this assignment and uh, cre- choose assign policy and the scope. Where do you want this policy to get applied? So what is the scope? So do you want this policy to get applied on your subscription or only to a particular resource group? So that you can choose. So I want this policy to get applied, so I'll keep it subscription only. Okay. uh, so you can choose a resource group also, and then you can choose a policy definition here. So let me click on this. So it shows the various policies, so you can choose whatever policy you want. So maybe I want to create a policy wherein I say any resources that I create must be created only in East US and not in any other location. So let me search for location, and there is a policy called allowed location. So this policy enables you to restrict the locations your organization can specify when deploying the resources. So let me choose this, select. So I have selected this policy. Now I need to specify which location. I say that it should be created only in East US. You want to specify more regions? You can specify it. So just go, let me give review plus create and then create it. So once this policy is created, let me go here. Is it created? It is getting created. Okay, so once the policy is created, and then you try to create something in the East US region, it will not allow you to create. It says that the policy is not allowing you to create. So let me just create something. Let me fill these details. By the time the policy will get created, let me give some name, storage. So I'm not going to give East US, I'll give West US. And before I hit review, okay, it says the policy is created and it can take up to 30 minutes to take effect. But anyways, let me try. Uh, but if it is not working, right? So it means it will take 30 minutes. But sometimes, uh, it's immediate. So anyway, we'll just quickly try it. It should throw an error. Yeah, it's not working. See, resource was disallowed by the policy. Got it? So this policy is not allowing me to actually create it. Okay, fine. So what I will do is I will actually delete it because otherwise it will just prevent me from creating something else. Fine. Let's go back. So that is what you mean by a policy. So you create a policy, you assign the policy, and then you review the evaluation result. That is what we just did. And then sometimes I may not want to create individual policies. I want to create multiple policies together. So which I call it as a definition. So when you go here, you can actually create a definition also. You see here, assign initiative definitions, initiative definition. So you can club multiple policies together and put it into one definition. So that is also possible. All right. Then comes your role based access control. So what do you mean by role based access control? See, uh, of course, policies are something that is getting applied at a subscription level or at a resource group level. That is different. But policies does not say who should be allowed to access what. That does not come under policies. So that comes under your RBAC. See, your Azure, when you have an Azure subscription, you can create resource groups, and inside the resource groups, you can create multiple resources, right? You can create multiple resources. Now, I have the subscription and I have multiple resource groups and I have certain resources. And maybe I have a VM or I have a storage. Just let me just take this as an example. I am managing this, subscription for my org or for my, for my team. So I'm not there. I want to, give access to John to my subscription. So when I give access to John for my subscription, so John will have access to all the resource group and all the resources. Then I feel no. I want to give access to John, but not to my entire subscription, maybe only to my resource group. So in that case, John will have access only to that particular resource group for which you have given him access. In turn, he will get access to all the resources within the resource group. Sometimes you feel, no, I want to give access only to this particular VM. Then fine, give access only to this VM. So it allows you to give, fine-grained access. So you're not giving too much access and you're not giving too little access also. Now, when it comes to access, there are different types of access. So you have a owner access, and then you have a contributor access, and then you also have something which we call it as a reader access. Okay, owner means they have all the accesses, read, write, anything. Contributor also, they have all access except that they will not be allowed to give access to someone else. And then reader, okay, they'll only be able to see, they'll not be able to modify anything. Got it? And so, and then comes your resource logs. So to ensure that you keep your, you do not delete your resources by mistakenly, or you do not want others to delete your resources, you can put these logs either on a resource group or on a individual resource. So that also I'll just quickly show it to you here. So let me open one of the resources. See, I'm just opening. this function app. Okay. Uh, yeah. See, when you open this function app, let me search for lock. You see here lock. You can just put a lock here. Give a name for your lock and choose what lock you want. When you choose a read-only lock, to anyone to whom you give access, they will only be able to see how your function app looks like. They'll not be able to modify. If you choose a delete lock, they'll be able to read, they will be able to modify, but they will not be able to delete that function app itself. Okay. So these are the two types of locks. And then you have an access control, using which you give an RBAC, role-based access. Let's assume I want to give access to John for this function app. So I go to this access control, click on add role assignment, uh, choose what access I want to give for John. I want to make John as a reader. And let me choose John, provided John should be added in my Active Directory. Even if you have not added John in your Active Directory, just you can add it directly from here. Automatically, he gets added in your Active Directory. Okay. So in this way, you can give access. All right. And then comes something we call it as a blueprint, which is a part of your policy. So let me just open my policy. I think it is already open. Sorry. Here. So towards the left, if you see, we have something called as a policy. Sorry, blueprint. See, I mean, blueprint is a very common term that are used by architects and engineers, to design and build new things. So usually blueprints are used to ensure that the final products are built as per the specification and standard. So similarly, Azure also offers a blueprint. So where are we? So what are the standards and compliance we are looking for? See, you're creating a resource. You are repeatedly creating certain resources using some template. So for these resources that you create, you feel these policies, these type of role assignments, these RBACs, all should be applied. So you can create a template, and in the template, right, you can specify what type of access you want, and what are the policies that needs to be created, and what resource that needs to be created. Everything you put in a template, and then you attach that template to the resource. So in that case, anything that you create, it complies with this blueprint. Got it? So you can just go here and you can create your blueprint, where we have options. Certain blueprints are there ready made. You can open that and see, or you can just start with a blank blueprint. You can just give your name, and then just where your blueprint location should be. So when you create a blueprint, where am I attaching it? I'm attaching that to my subscription. Okay. And then what are the artifacts? So artifacts refers to the role assignments. These are the artifacts. Okay. Policy assignment, role assignment, template, resource group. So you can provide all these details. Just it's just few clicks. You should be able to create your own blueprint. All right. Are you all with me? So this is what we were discussing. And when it comes to subscription, see, I mentioned yesterday, without a subscription, you cannot work with Azure. Okay, to log in into the portal and start creating resources, it is important that you should have subscription. All right. So when it comes to subscription, there are three major aspects that you should be considering. One is a billing, another one is an access control, other one is an subscription limit. So billing, how much you pay for your subscription, and access control, who all should be allowed to access that subscription. Okay. And then what is the limit of that subscription? Maybe is the limit 10K? Is it 50K? It is 20K? Or even if it is a 10K, do you want to increase it? Okay. So what should be done? Okay. Should I go for additional subscriptions? So all these comes into picture. So you should be able to manage your subscription in that way. And then we have something called as a tags. So you might have seen, when I create a lot of for every resource that I create, there was always a field called as tag. See, let's assume I'm creating a storage. There is a tag. I can give some tags. I can just give created by Juliet, or you know modified for you know development team or some tags. So why do you think I need these tags? And even for some resources that are already created, you can add tags. See, you can see here tags, right? You can click here to add tags. Okay, maybe I can also get. So tomorrow you want to do some filter or you want to do some monitoring based on tags, it can be done easily. You want to find the billing of all the resources created by Juliet, so you can just pull that particular tag and then you can find the billing information. You want to monitor only those resources that are created by Juliet, you can do that. Got it? So for that reason we have tags. And in order to monitor all your resources, we have a service here which we call it as monitor. So let me go to this monitor. And so this monitor is one stop shop for monitoring all your resources on Azure. So you can monitor all your virtual machines from here. Okay. See, now I see here monitored 0, not monitored 1. So I want to monitor this VM, you'll have to enable it, but then it will take some time. Okay. So anyway, when you enable it, then all the monitoring information will start streaming into this monitoring service. All right. And then you want to monitor your storage account. You can see what are the various storage accounts and what is the transaction time, what is the latency, and all those details. And same thing with your containers and then your key vaults. All right. So you can, so this is one stop shop and you want to configure some alerts. For example, if you say if my VM usage or if my VM CPU usage exceeds 90%, then, a notification should be sent, an email notification. So you can configure alerts from here. So you can create your own alerts. Okay. So you'll have to choose the resource, you'll have to choose the resource condition and everything, and you'll have to create your own alerts so that you get notification. And see, individually, you can monitor all the resources. Say, I want to monitor my key vault. So I can open my key vault and I can see what is the total request, and at what time and what's the usage and all these can be seen. But I'll have to open individual resources and see. So this is a one-stop shop for monitoring all your resources. Okay. So we saw about monitor, and then we also have something called as a service health. So which is another service that we have. So let me go to create resource. Oh, sorry, service health. Yeah. So this talks about all the service issues. See, if at all, if there is a plant maintenance that is happening in your, data center, you could get those information from here. If there is some health advisory or security advisory, that also gets listed here. But as of now, there are no advisories. And if at all you want to get some notification, okay, you want to get some notification on, if there is a health alert. So you can get those notifications also from here. You can configure an alert. So you say, okay, if there is a service health, plant maintenance, health advisory, security, immediately send me a notification. So you can give a name for your alert and all these details, and then you can get it notified. So those type of, alerts can also be done. So which purely talks about the health of your resources. So basically, so all these monitoring applications and services, they helps, they analyzes. How does it analyze? Because it is getting, the information from your application inside VM and all, and then it analyzes the data. It responds. How does it respond? Through alerts. Okay, and then it gives you permission to visualize your data, and this we get some visualization here. To get further insight into it, you can make use of your Power BI and other visualization tools also, and then you can integrate it with other systems, whatever caters to your need, whatever you are using in your project, to monitor these resources. Okay. So now a little bit on these, compliance. Uh, See, as far as this compliance is concerned, see, when we choose a cloud service provider, okay, uh, to store our data into the cloud or to have our applications deployed, it is very important that you understand how the provider can uh, help you comply with the regulations and the standards. right? And you ask several questions. How compliant is the cloud provider when it comes to handling sensitive data? And how compliant are the services offered by the cloud provider? Or how can I deploy my own cloud-based solution to scenarios that has some compliance requirements? So all these are important. And you can see these are the various compliance service offerings like CG, CJIS, HIPAA, ISO, CSA star, and all these. So you can get details of this from our portal. I will share you the link. And then Microsoft has several privacy statements. So this talks about how the how Microsoft collects data from you. Sometimes it is through the interaction, or sometimes through some of their products, and some data you provide directly, and some data are collected with your interactions or use and experiences with the products. So all these data are collected, and some data are collected with your consent, most of the data, and how it actually stores this data and how are these data handled. So all these can be seen from the privacy statement, which I can show it to you here. Okay. So this is the privacy statement. So I'll be sharing the MS Learn link that will have these privacy statements, and you can see how we use the personal data, reasons we share the personal data, how to access and control your personal data. So this is the privacy statement that Microsoft is uh, giving to us. All right, and then comes the you know uh, trust portal. Okay, so with trust portal, you know you you know we are establishing some sort of a trust with the customers. So only if the customers are going to trust us, they come to us, right? So we have a trust portal, so which gives us enough information on how the security, identity, and everything is managed. So yeah, here it is. Okay, so how Microsoft is offering you security? It's on top, privacy and compliance. And when it comes to security, and what are the various solutions it is providing, how it is securing the remote work. So it is a huge documentation, and you can go through it. I'll share you this link. And zero trust, how it is taking care of IAM, threat protection, information protection. And when it comes to privacy, it talks about your GDPR and all those. Okay, so what it is, what are the various, how it is establishing the trust with the customers with respect to the security, privacy, and compliance. And if at all you want to see, uh, the reports, okay, then in that case you can go for your service trust portal. Okay, so this particular service trust portal gives you the various audit reports of the Microsoft cloud services. So all the audit reports are available for you. So you can just go here, and I will open the trust portal where you can see all the reports. Okay, let me scroll down. Sorry, view all audit reports. So these are some of the resources, as you see here, to help information security and compliance professionals understand. See, various reports are present here. The audit reports with respect to FedRAMP, and this is with ENS audit reports. And then we have, GRC assessment reports, ISO reports. So, if you want to go deep into it, you can just go download these documents and see their audits and whatever findings, if any, you can, go through it. And then we have this Azure garment. See, we have been looking at Azure portal. We created resources. Azure garment is a separate cloud environment which is physically isolated from the normal Azure data center. Okay, and this Azure garment is something that is specifically built for US government, including the defense department. Okay. See, while there are multiple cloud service providers in the public sector, not many can offer this unique capability, required by the state and local and federal government agencies. And so the major difference between this Azure Garment and the Azure normal Azure is, so this Azure Garment is a sovereign cloud. It is physically separated, okay, and it is dedicated to US government workloads only, okay, and it is highly designed, it is designed for highly sensitive data, and you know enabling all those government customers to safely transfer all those mission critical workloads to their cloud. And these are their compliance standards with respect to Azure Garment Services. So similar to that, even for China, okay, there is something called as 21 ViaNet. Okay, so Microsoft Azure operated by this 21 ViaNet. Uh, okay, this is also a physically separated instance. Okay, located in China, and this is actually operated by an org, you can say, which we call it as Shanghai Blue Cloud Technology, and this is a wholly owned subsidiary of Beijing ViaNet. So Azure is offering this, a garment or, completely isolated data centers for US garment and this China VNet. All right. So we have seen about privacy, we saw about compliance, and then we also saw about data protection. So I'm just stopping at this point. So we'll take 5 minutes break and then we'll come back. So before we take a break, are you all with me? Okay. So let me just switch on the timer and okay, fine. So we'll meet in another 5 minutes. Okay.
Hi, Juliet. Can you unmute yourself? You're on mute. Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Juliet.
Yes, we shall get started. Hope you all are able to hear me. Okay, so can you all please go to www.menti.com and give this code? So I will wait for few seconds. So please go to menti.com and enter this code 3429133. So 3429133. Okay, so let me start. So which of the following services provide status information about the health of Azure services? Okay, it is the Azure Service Health. Which service should you use for centralized monitoring? Yes, it is the Azure Monitor. I mentioned it is a one-stop shop, right? Then your third question. To control traffic between virtual networks, use. Azure Firewall. We use firewall, right? So virtual network gateway is for hybrid connectivity, which we saw yesterday. See, for traffic control, it is firewall. I mean, I'll just come back to that towards the end. To prevent credentials from being stored in web app configuration files, use. Where do you store your keys? Yes, it is the key vault. Can you delete a VM with a read-only log? No, right. You cannot delete it if it has a read-only log. Your Windows VM has a read-only log. Can you RDP into the VM and shut down the machine? You're just doing an RDP and shutting down the machine. Yes, you can shut down. It's only about deleting. Where can you get information about how Microsoft processes your personal data? Exactly. It's a privacy statement. Next, your last question. You want to prevent users from creating resources in certain regions. So you use, how do you stop someone from creating a resource in another regions where you do not want to? We did that demo, right? Exactly. So it is the Azure policy. Okay, that's good. Fine, let's continue. So cake wins. So let me exit. Okay. So far, right, we discussed about security, privacy, compliance, policies, access control, and various compliance offering, trust portal, service trust portal, privacy, and all. Now let us, look a little bit about a subscription. What are the various subscriptions? How you can do cost management, and if at all you have some issues with on working with Azure portal, or you need some technical support or some sort of support, whom do you reach out to, and what exactly an SLA is, and how is that SLA calculated, and how do you get to know about the various preview and general availability features of Azure? Okay, fine. See, for you to work with Azure, the very first thing that you require is an Azure subscription, right? You need an Azure subscription. And unless you have a subscription, you will not be able to work with Azure. And this particular subscription that you purchase, or that you want, it is mandatory that it is attached with an Active Directory, or it comes along with a tenant. All right. So it's in this way, something like this. So, okay, right. So it's something like this. You will have an Azure Active Directory, or maybe I call this as a tenant also. Okay. And this particular Active Directory can have a subscription. Maybe I name this as subscription one. All right. And an Active Directory can have multiple subscriptions. It is not that there is one subscription must be attached with one active directory. A single active directory can have multiple subscriptions. All right, but if you feel that one subscription is sufficient for you, then just go with one. But a single subscription cannot be attached with uh, you know multiple active directories. So this scenario is not possible. So it is actually 1 is to n, but it is not actually the other way around is not possible. It's not n is to 1. Okay, one active directory can be attached to multiple subscriptions. So yeah, multiple subscriptions can belong to one active directory, but you cannot share a single subscription with multiple tenants. Got it? And this subscription that we are purchasing can come in different flavors. Okay, for a beginner, you can create a free account. But how do you create a free account? You just go here, and now I look for Azure free account. So I'm just doing this so that it is easier for, even if you forget the link, you can get it. So you can go to this Microsoft Azure, get your free account, and you have a link there, get started. So you can get it, just start free, and it asks for certain basic information. Fill the form and submit it. You get a subscription which you can use it, with which you get 13,300 credit. Okay, and that subscription is valid for 30 days. I mean, when I say 30 days, you will be able to create new resources until 30 days. But if you have already created resources, you can continue to use them for the next 12 months. Like this. See, I have created all these resources. There are a lot of resources here. Let's assume this is a free trial. Okay, and I created all these resources. And tomorrow my subscription is going to expire, and it has expired also. But I can continue to use these services. I can continue to use my function app. I can continue to use my storage until I have this 13,300 rupees credit. But after 30 days, it will not allow me to create any new resources. Okay, and there are certain services like Azure AD and all. You can directly create it. You need not have a subscription to work with AD. For AD, we have separate set of licenses. Azure AD, we have P1, P2, Enterprise, and all those. All right. So the very first thing is you should have an Active Directory, and then you will have a subscription attached to your Active Directory. And as I told you, uh, this Azure account here, we are referring to the Active Directory or the tenant. Okay. As I told you, these subscriptions can come in several flavors, like free, pay as you go. It can be an enterprise agreement, and and uh, you can have multiple subscriptions. So I just showed you how to create a free subscription. Now, when you have multiple subscriptions, okay, when you have multiple subscription, let's assume I have this, subscription 1, and I have the subscription 2, and I have the subscription 3. All right. And let's assume I have even more subscriptions. Maybe I have sorry, I have another subscription 4 and another subscription 5. Okay, multiple subscriptions. I would want to, okay, I would want to manage these subscriptions together. See, for example, I want to manage my subscription 1 and 2 together. I want to manage my subscription 3 separately, and I want to manage my subscription 4 and 5 together. So, why do you think I may want to manage it together? See, yesterday, if you remember, I said you're creating several groups. You may want to manage, certain resources together. Hence, we created something called as a resource group, right? So that is the purpose of a resource group. You create a resource group so that you can manage it. And I gave you several other reasons. You can manage it. Uh, you can create access for that separately. You can define separate policies for that, and all those. So similarly, even for your subscriptions, you can group these subscriptions. I mean, when I say group, we are logically grouping the subscriptions. When you logically group your resources, we call them as resource group. when you logically group your subscriptions, we call them as management group. Okay, so a management group can contain one or more subscriptions. Why do you want to manage subscriptions together? Probably you want to, apply some policy together on two subscriptions. You want to provide some access to those two subscriptions. Maybe you feel, no, I would like to, manage the billing of those two subscriptions together. So there can be any reason. Okay, so we talk about managing the subscriptions here. So you have multiple subscriptions. I have a subscription here. So these two are managed together as a management group. So a management group can have multiple subscriptions, and each subscriptions can have multiple resource groups, and each resource groups can have multiple resources. So it's like a tree structure, and then you can have multiple management groups created under a single tenant. All right, and management groups can be created directly from here. So you can just go here, search for management group, and you can just add a management group, give a name for your management group, then create it, then keep adding your subscription. But I only have one subscription here, so I may not be able to group multiple things and show you. Now, how do you plan and manage the cost? See, we are getting these subscriptions and we are leveraging certain Azure products and Azure services, right? Now, these Azure products and services come in different flavors. Like we have something like, enterprise, or we can say services are there, contingent to enterprise, web direct, and CSPs. Now, these enterprise customers are nothing but what they do is they sign an enterprise agreement with Azure. Okay, so they are going to sign an agreement with Azure, and they say, or they commit, with Azure, that commits them to spending a negotiated amount on certain Azure services. They say, we are signing an agreement. In a year, we will, spend this much, something like that. So these enterprise customers have some customized pricing. Okay, now, then comes the web direct. So with web direct, what we do is we have customers that pay the public prices. These are like normal people who just sign up. Uh, so they pay the public price. There is no negotiated amount or customized pricing at all. They pay the public prices for Azure resources, and their monthly payment and billing actually happens through the Azure website itself. And then comes the cloud solutions providers. Excuse me. So this cloud solution providers are usually uh, Microsoft partner companies that a customer hires to build on top of Azure. So here the payment and billing for Azure usage usually occurs through the customers cloud solutions provider. Okay, sorry, it's a cloud solutions provider. And even with your personal account also, you can purchase Azure products and services, but that takes the usual pricing. uh, all right, so there are personal, there are partners, there are enterprise, and there are also some resellers. Okay, and when you purchase Azure products and all, your cost depends on three major things. One is your resource type, what resource you're creating, or what resource you're leveraging, and what services, and the location. Okay, so it is, so every all resources, different resources come with different pricing. So it's a, for VM, the charge is calculated per hour. Okay, whereas for when the VM is shut down, it includes the storage component also, pricing, but we do not calculate the cost for compute and other things. And for a HD cluster, the pricing is even different. And for other databases, there are different flavors. So there are different resources come with different pricings, and what service. And this can also the price can also vary between different what you can say, different providers, like the agreement, like whether it is an enterprise or a web direct or a cloud solutions provider customers. And then it also depends on location. So maybe the cost of a VM is different in East US and it might be different in Brazil. Okay, usually the places where the data centers are concentrated, the cost is comparatively less, not very less. Okay, compared to those places where there is only one or two data centers, because we encourage, the users, yeah, the Azure users to leverage those data centers. Those data centers which are, the regions which has more data centers. Okay, so these are the three primary, factors that affect your cost. And when it comes to billing, billing is done in these three zones basically. So West US, East US. So this is not related to your availability zone. Okay, so don't confuse with that. This is just a billing zone. Okay, so a lot of times when this billing happens, the inbound, the connection, that, I mean, the request that is going to the data center is not charged. Only those data, only the outbound data transfer actually costs, and this cost and it is not for all the resources. Okay, and this cost depends on the zone. So there are three zones. So one is your West US, East US, West Europe, and others come under Zone 1. Australia, Japanese, Central India, and others come under Zone 2. And then Brazil comes under Zone 3. And then we have D Zone 1, which includes Germany Central and Germany Northeast. So this is only with respect to billing. All right. And for you to, see, now that you have gone through a lot of resources, you have an idea. Now you might have that question in mind, how much will it cost if I create a VM on Azure? Right. So when you have such things, we have something called as a pricing calculator. So let me go to the pricing calculator here. Okay. I, so let me go to this, yeah, pricing calculator. Okay, so here you choose, let's assume you want to know the price of an Azure virtual machine. Okay, so let me choose this. Hmm. Okay, so now let me view. So let's see how much cost it is. Okay, so you can choose your region. You're going to create a VM in East US with Windows OS, and the tier is standard. And this is my instance configuration. You want to choose a higher RAM and all, you can choose it. And I'll be creating only one virtual machine, and that is going to be 730 hours. And what type of, are you do you have a pay as you go model, or 1 year reserved, or 3 years reserved? And also there are, you can choose whatever option you want. And is license included? Yes. And are you going for Azure hybrid benefit? Not for now. Okay, so with all this, it has calculated the VM comes around $137 per month. Okay, so let me just check whether the pricing varies with respect to some other. See, with Japan, it comes around 161. Got it? So the resource, right? Let me choose Australia. It comes to 158. So the cost of the resource varies on location, that you can see it from here. Now you want to add additional, you want to add additional resources and check it. You can. Now, what I mean, how much do I have to pay if I have a storage account also? Okay, so just go down, scroll down. You should be able to see that. Yeah, here it is. Hmm. Storage account. How much are you paying for it? So it comes to approximately $20 per month. So you can, using this pricing calculator, you can actually, find out how much you will be paying per month. So you can leverage this pricing calculator. And yeah, then we have something called as a total cost of ownership calculator. So this is slightly different. So this is used to estimate how much, you would be saving if you're migrating your workloads to Azure. Okay, you might be having some workloads on premise. So how much will I save if I migrate to Azure? So you'll have to, first define your workloads in this case. So you will have to define your workloads here. Okay, you will say, okay, you will have to enter the details about your on-premise workload. So you will say, what all servers you have, and what all databases that you are planning to migrate, and you know uh, what is the storage, and what is the amount of data, and what is the networking details. So you will provide all these details. So first you will define your on-premise workload, and sometimes you will also make some assumptions here. So you will make some assumptions. So in these assumptions, right, you will adjust the values of some assumptions, key assumptions that the TCO calculator makes. So this varies between customers, and so you will adjust the values so they match the cost of your current on-premise infra. Okay, so you can include your storage cost, IT labor cost, hardware cost, software cost, electricity. So all these comes under your assumptions. So you can make use of this TCO calculator to find that. So let me go here. Pricing, yeah. Now let me start this assessment. Now let me, you will have to define your workload here. So I'm not going to change anything here. Just define your workload. You can add new workloads also. Okay. So what are your servers? What is a server configuration? And is it a data center, or is it is a standard one? How many servers? What is the RAM? And any GPU details? What is the version of the server? And any databases up there, and storage. And you can give you know backup details, anything that needs to be archived and all. And now let me give a next, and you can adjust your assumptions here. So yeah, this is what I told you. What if there is an electricity cost, virtual machine cost, and all these can come under here. So I'm not giving anything, so you know your requirements, so you can give these. And now let me click next. So this says, over 5 years with Azure Microsoft, your estimated cost savings could be as much as 11,000, approximately 11K, 12K dollars, right? So that is how. So I mean, I just went with the default data, but you can provide actuals, and then you can test it. So this TCO calculator, in fact, helps you to predict you know how much would be your savings over the next 5 years. So you can look at these graphs here, and this gives individual split up with compute how much you are saving, with data center how much you are saving, with networking how is it. So you can see here. So look at this dark blue, which is compute 59%, but with cloud it is only 3% compute, and then you are paying 6,005 $261, right? So these type of breakdown information, you get it from this TCO calculator. All right. Then comes your cost management. Okay, so those things are about pricing calculator and TCO calculator or something. You're using it to just to analyze, what if I go to Azure. See, now that you already have a subscription and you're already using a lot of resources, so how do you manage your billing? What if I want to limit the usage? So all these comes under your cost management. So when it comes to cost management, so we you can go to your portal. So let me go to my portal. Let me open my subscription. Let me open this. And you can see, okay, so this shows a very high level split up. So let me just open this so that we get a, so it is opening. Just let's wait for a minute. Yeah. So can you see the split up here? Hmm? Uh, Let me just go down. Okay, that is it. Fine. So when you see here, so you can see one of my virtual machines, it costed around, 6K, and the storage, some $300, and the virtual network is this. And if at all you want to look at the billing per location, you can see this for East US, US East 2, this is the cost. And if at all you want to, look at the pricing as per, you know, uh, the resource group, you can look at the cost in this way. And this also forecasts, okay, actual cost is this, but the forecast is this. So it can give you some sort of a forecast also. And you can in fact download this report, and you can do further analysis. Now, apart from this, if at all you want to do some budget wise limit, so probably you say, no, when someone uses approximately reaches uses almost 8K, immediately notify me, or just stop them from creating further resources and all. So you can go to this budget, okay, and then you can create your own budget here. Okay, so you can say, just give a name for your budget. Okay, uh, and specify the creation date, okay, from when on. And you can set the expiration date, and you can specify the amount, okay, and what should be the threshold, and all these details. And then you can you can create your own budget. And another thing is, we also have an option to set the spending limit. So this is one common term that you might hear or even heard of. So there is something called as you know spending limit. Okay, spending limit. So on all the subscriptions, it is turned on. By default, it is turned on, which means once you receive, the maximum. So let's assume I'm given a budget of 10K for using. So once I reach this 10K, I will not be allowed to create further resources on Azure. And so by default, it is kept as on. And if at all you make it as off, then what happens is, once you reach the 10K limit, it allows you to create further resources, but you will be charged for that. Okay, I mean, it just keeps on charging. So it is always better that you keep the spending limit as on. Okay, do not keep it as off. All right. And so that comes under your cost. And you can create alerts also, like if the cost exceeds 8K, immediately notify me, and all these can be done. So alerting is one feature which is now available with all the resources that we have on Azure. Then we have some support options also. See, you're new to Azure, and you might have a lot of queries. So during the initial days, if you're going to get started with Azure, for every click that you're going to perform, you think twice, right? Okay, so if I do this, will I be charged more? Will my subscription go away? And all these details and all these doubts you have in your mind. So we have uh, you know uh, support available through our portal itself, wherein you can go and then raise your query. But when you create your subscription, initially you will be given, or by default, this basic plan comes with your subscription. Okay, and so this is available to all Azure accounts. And then we have another type of support option, which we call it as developer. And this is a trial one, and it is used for non-production environments. All right. And if you want to raise some support request for an actual production environment, wherein you need some architect opinion and all those, then you can go for your standard. Then we have a professional direct also. So this is for business critical, and it is 24 by 7. So you can reach out to the support person over call or mail. So these are the different options that we have. Sorry, let me just show you where you can go and raise your support. See, we are done with creating all resources. So what I'm showing you now is what are the, how, what if when you start working with Azure, where do you look for information on all those? Okay. So do you see this help plus support towards the left? So let me open that. Towards the left, you will see new support request. I'm not going to go there. Instead, first I will go to the support plans. So let me go to the support plans. And do you see the support plans here? So this is what I was telling you. See, with basic, you get a billing assistance. Okay. And then you get 24 by 7 access to customer service. But this is applicable only for billing. The scope is only for billing. If you have some technical queries, you will not be answered for that. And you will also have access to Azure Advisor recommendations. So Advisor, remember, yesterday we saw about Advisor. See, from an exam perspective, you should understand the difference between, you should know what exactly is a security center, what is an advisor, what is a monitor. Okay, because you will be given a scenario and you might be asked to answer what should when you should be going for an advisor or a monitor or a security center. So you should leverage this advisor. So that is what. And if you are upgrading to a developer, then you will have some support that is given for your trial and non-production environments also. And then you have 24 by 7 the same support. But in addition to that, you will also have business hours access to support engineers via mail. And you have unlimited contacts and unlimited cases that can be opened. So all these you get, and you pay approximately $29 per month. And then again, we have a standard. So in standard, this is for production and workload environment. So as we discussed before some time, and we get additional benefits. Okay. So you go for the higher plan, you get more support. Got it? So, you need not always upgrade to a higher plan. It purely depends on your requirement. If you're just a starter, you can just go with this basic one. Okay. Then comes, we have various, support channels that are available. So you must be aware of this, all the Stack Overflow and MSDN forums and our Twitter. So you can raise your queries there also. If at all you want to know where that is, you can go here and yeah, we have an Azure community support. Let me open that. Yeah, just go here, choose which community forum you want to go to. So is it an MSDN forum or a Stack Overflow or a server fault or an Azure feedback? You can just go here and raise your queries, and you can also look at the queries that others had raised and those that have been answered. And we have it in the portal also. So let me go to this overview here. See, you can see it here also. Okay, so you can navigate from here also. And then later, if at all you need a support request, you can go raise a new request, new support request, choose your category. Let me choose as billing and for which subscription, and then you know give a summary of what your issue is all about. Choose the problem type. Is it related to pricing, payment, assistance, and whatever it is, you just pay for it and then submit your request. And within I think within 12 hours someone gets back to you, either over the call or over email. But your query is always responded and it is closed. All right. Then comes your there is something called as a knowledge center. Okay, so this is like a database. So for example, if you have some queries on your SQL data warehouse, what are the issues that others had faced with, uh, others had raised regarding a VPN gateway and all those. So those queries, those are answered. You can get it from here. So you can go to this knowledge center. Fine. So you can see there are a lot of queries. You can search also. Okay. So a SQL database query is slow or unresponsive. Why can't I run Louis on my own subscription? About app service environment. So you can search. You can search. Maybe let me just give some data lake. data lake storage. Then it shows all questions that are related, and you can click on this view more. See, if at all you have decided to use a particular product, okay, you have decided to make use of a data bricks. So what you can do is you can just go here, you just search for it, and from the knowledge center you get more information regarding that particular product or the service that you're looking for. So this is very good for a start. Okay. And then, we talk about a little bit about SLAs. What exactly is an SLA? So we know it is a service level agreement. So SLA is nothing but it is some sort of a contract, right? That the cloud service provider has with your internal or external customer, right? So they say, we give you an SLA of 99.95%, which means you're guaranteed that your application is up 99.95 percentage of the time. Okay, so again, when they give an SLA, so you should be very careful in reading those SLAs. So even for VMs, we say it is 99.95, but when do you get that 99.95? You get that 99.95 only when you make use of an availability set. If you remember, we discussed about availability set yesterday, putting those VMs in different update domains and fault domains, right? Otherwise, you get an uptime of 99.9% only. So you need to read those SLAs, and so this is just an example of certain SLAs. And these SLAs that Azure offers to you, it starts from 3 nines and it can go to 4 nines, and it can go up to now it can go up to 7 nines also in case of your storage and all. So when I say 9, it is like 99.9999995 times. All right. And if at all, if a particular service fails without meeting the SLA, then a percentage of the monthly service fees is credited to you. All right. And it is always handled in a proper way. Now, this is important even from your exam perspective. When it comes to SLA, see, they say for a web app, the SLA is 99.95%, and the SLA for a database is 99.99%. But if someone asks you what is the SLA for your application that is lying on cloud, but that is a question they ask you, but then your application is actually accessing a database, probably it is accessing another storage also, maybe it is accessing a warehouse also, we do not know, or it is making use of a functions also. Okay, so it is important that you calculate a composite SLA. So we do not give individual SLAs in that case, so we calculate a composite SLA. So wherein we say, for these two, it is 99.95 percentage into 99.99 percentage. So here the composite SLA comes to 99.94%. Okay, which is actually lower than the web app individual services, lower than the web app, and the SLA that is uh, lower than the SLA of the SQL database also. Okay, so you will be, just uh, give a little bit, care for this, because from an exam perspective, you may have to calculate your composite SLAs. So this is something that is important. And again, you will have to when you have decided that you are going to leverage cloud and have your application on cloud, it is important that you take care of all these. First of all, you should understand your workload. See, what exactly are you going to put on cloud? Okay, I'm going to put my web application. Okay, and I also have a SQL database. So these are the two resources that I will be going to you know I will have on cloud. And then you should also decide, okay, if I'm going to put my web app, how am I ensuring that it is highly available? Am I creating multiple instances of my web application? Okay. And even in case of a database, so am I is my database having a secondary region wherein a read operation can be done? And you will have to decide all these. So what if my database fails? So do I have a disaster recovery plan there? Okay. And then even if something fails, what is the mean time to recover, and what could be the mean time between different failures, and what is an RPO? So here RPO, we say, up to what point in time could the business process recovery proceed, tolerably given the volume of data lost during that particular interval. And then what is the recovery time objective? So here we say how much time did it take to recovery after notification of the disruption. So all these, right, all these you will have to take into consideration. So when we talk about SLA, it is not just the number that you look at it and then you put your data on cloud. You will have to, plan for all these. Okay, these are all, very important when you have applications deployed on cloud. So you need to plan all these well in advance and then look at your SLAs when you put your data on cloud. Got it? Are you all with me? Fine. Now we'll look at a little bit about the service lifecycle on Azure. See, we see different features that on Azure, right? So discard. So let me go here and let me go to the marketplace. Okay, so we have, different services on Azure. If you see, right? So all these services frequently, some of these services, gets updated. We come up with new features, and these services gets updated. So you might have created a machine learning model today. So when you open tomorrow, I mean, the model that you created will not be affected, but you will see additional features that might have been incorporated into that particular service. And you might have created a virtual machine, you might have created a virtual machine, some 2 years back, and then today when you try to open it, when you open your portal, and you might, see other features, lot of features getting added to your virtual machines. That makes your life easier, right? How do you exactly find out how are these changes taking place on Azure? So when a particular change is being done on a service, or when a new service is being created, so how is that rolled out to the public? How is Microsoft actually handling that, right? So what we do is, so there are two things. One is a private preview, another one is a public preview. So Azure, in private preview, what Microsoft does is, uh, so these, any new feature, any new Azure feature that comes up, it is only made available to certain customers. Okay, we give to certain customers, they use it, and then we collect feedback. It is then incorporated, and only then, it is actually put into the production. Certain services, it goes to the public preview. And even today, I'm not sure whether you noticed it, one of the services that we created was actually under a preview. I'll show you that. And it is given to the customers, they use it, they give their feedback, and then it is being incorporated. And then, after, a couple of months, then it is, put on live. If you remember, today when we created the policy, let me open the policy. We created a blueprint, right? I mean, we did not create, but I showed you how to create a blueprint. So you see this blueprint here towards the left. So this is actually in the preview. So you can see, right? uh, okay, sorry. So it is actually in the preview. All right, so if it is in the public preview, you can still continue to use it. Okay, it's not that, okay, it is in the preview, is it okay if I use it? You can use it, you can continue to use it, and you have any feedbacks, you can put it, you can provide your feedbacks. So there are two types of previews here. All right, so one is your private, another one is your public. Then how exactly do you find these preview features or the previews, new services that has come in? So you can search for preview. Let me go to my portal. Okay, see, so this shows all the services, that are in the preview mode. So you can see SQL analytics, that is in the preview, data analytics, that is in the preview, This is in the preview. So in some services, some are new services. So in some services, certain new features might have been added. Okay, so you can find all the preview services from here. I mean, all the services that are in the preview mode. All right, and yes, and how do you know? See, you're leveraging Azure to some extent, and if Azure is going to get updated frequently, then how will I know? So will I get some notification? Where do I exactly find which features are updated, or which new feature has come up? Where do I actually find those? For that, we have an update, Azure Update Portal. So you can go to this Azure Update Portal. So let me just open it. Mm, yeah, Azure Updates. Okay, so here you can see the various updates. Okay, you can just go here and you can open and see. So PowerShell support for server migration with Azure Migrate is now generally available. Azure Security Center, some updates have been done here. And so you can see the various updates that are happening on the various services, or even in case of new services, you can see those details coming up in this Azure Updates link. So you can get those details from here. All right. Uh, and then other services, right, that are made available to us, we call them as general availability. All right. So I will just pause here for a minute. Uh, are you all with me? I know over the last 20 minutes, it's just some updates and all. Just I was just walking you through some sites, but anyways, are you all with me? Okay. Okay. Thank you. So what I will do is, so that is, pretty much about AZ-900. So before I walk you through certain, slides, which has some information or some action items for you, I will just walk you through the entire course once. Okay. So yesterday we started with the introduction. We saw what cloud is all about, and we discussed about the various features like global access. Cloud gives us storage, cloud gives us compute, and it is pay on demand. It is a self service, and all these we discussed yesterday. So I'll just put it here so that you all are with me. Just give me a minute quickly. Okay. Fine. So we discussed about those cloud features. Then we discussed about the various deployment models like the private cloud. So private cloud is something which is protected by some firewall or boundaries which do not allow external access. So if it belongs to an organization, only those who belong to that organization will be able to access the private cloud. And then we have a public cloud. So public cloud is something that is open for all. You subscribe for it, you pay for it, and you will be able to access the public cloud. Then we discussed about the hybrid cloud. So hybrid cloud is actually a combination of your private cloud and public cloud. See, sometimes you may want to have your application hosted on Azure, but maybe you're not so confident enough to put your database onto cloud. You may feel, no, no, it consists of all sensitive data, or you may have a compliance with your organization that the database must be residing in must be residing on premise. So in that case, you can have your application on cloud. The application that is accessing the database, okay, that particular database can be kept on premise, so thereby establishing some hybrid connectivity. You can access the database. So this type of connectivity, we call it as a hybrid cloud, right? And then we discussed about the various services. We discussed about IaaS, we discussed about PaaS, and then we discussed about SaaS. So in infrastructure as a service, let me put it in a very simple way. Anyway, it is a repetition. Uh, so you do not have a particular infrastructure. You are asking cloud for an infrastructure. They are creating an infrastructure for you inside their data center, and you are making use of their infrastructure through the internet. This is what we call it as infrastructure as a service. Basically, your infrastructure is created inside their data center, you are making use of it. Okay. And then comes platform as a service, wherein you're not asking for an infrastructure. You just ask cloud, I want a platform wherein I can directly go and create a database. So they give you a platform with SQL Server installed on it. You say, I want to have a platform where I can directly go and start my .NET coding. So they give you a platform wherein Visual Studio is already installed. You say, no, I want a platform wherein I can get my Java application deployed. So they give you a platform with all configured wherein you can deploy your application. So these type of services we call it as platform as a service. And software as a service, as mentioned by Preeti, it is your O365, your dynamic CRM, and all these comes under your software as a service, right? And then we also discussed about certain infrastructure services. We discussed about how you can create virtual machines. We discussed about how you can create your app services, and we also discussed a little bit about VMSS, which is nothing but your virtual machine scale set. You remember that, how you can create identical VMs. I said it can be created for microservices. When you want to create identical VMs with a similar environment and configuration, you can create a virtual machine scale set. You need not create individual VMs. Okay. And then we also discussed about virtual network. Then along with virtual network, we also discussed VPN gateway is necessary to create a hybrid connectivity. If you remember, I discussed about a virtual network and an on-premise network. In order to connect both of them, we need a VPN gateway at Azure Virtual Networks end, and we need a VPN device at the on-premise end, right? Then we discussed about load balancer, which is a service that is used for you know routing your request in case your application has multiple instances. And then we discussed about application gateway. So in application gateway, we discussed about putting your instances of your application behind a web application firewall. Excuse me. And then we also discussed about other services like your serverless computing. So we discussed three serverless computing. One is your function app, another one is your logic app, another one is your event grid, right? So in function app, we in fact created a function app also yesterday, if you remember. We created a function app, and it so function, so we call it as a serverless computing. It's not because it does not involve any servers. It is because we do not have to manage those servers. So you just write your piece of code, just put it on the environment, then it starts running. All right. So in order to write that piece of code, you should be proficient in some programming language. All right. But if you're not proficient in a language, still you would like to, create some workflows on cloud, then you can go for logic app. And event grid is something that is used for reactive programming, wherein you would like to find out whether you would like to take some action based on some event. Then you can go for this event grid, right? And then we also discussed about IoT Hub, and how IoT Hub is helping manufacturing or other engineering units in managing the IoT devices in a centralized manner. So in order to do this, we have an IoT Hub, and we also have an IoT Central, wherein everything happens at a centralized location. And then we discussed about machine learning, two things: machine learning studio, and we also discussed about machine learning service, right? And with machine learning studio, it is just a drag and drop option, if you remember. And with machine learning service, it is just you should know how to code. All right. But you get more customization with machine learning service. Got it? And then we also discussed about Azure DevOps. And when it comes to Azure DevOps, we discussed the different features like repos, wherein you can have your code repository either inside a Azure Git or inside a TFS. Okay. And we discussed about boards, which is used for tracking your work. And we also discussed about pipelines. and we also discussed about test plans, and we also discussed about artifacts, right? And I think that was pretty much we discussed yesterday. Sorry, I don't remember everything, but these are some of the major things that we discussed yesterday. And then we started with today's part, wherein we majorly focused on security. And when it comes to security, we discussed about uh, Azure Virtual Network and what are the various subnets. Then we discussed about network security group, and we discussed about network security group, right? So where is it? We discussed about, sorry, somewhere on top. Okay. So we discussed about network security group. We discussed about application security group and all. Fine. So we just give me a minute. I think I lost that. Okay. Fine. So we discussed about NSG, we discussed about ASG, and we also discussed about firewall as a service, right? And then we discussed a little bit about Azure Active Directory. And when we started with Azure Active Directory, we did a small comparison with the Windows Active Directory. So see, keep in mind, Azure Active Directory is not a replacement for your Windows Active Directory. Okay, and so your Windows Active Directory has a specific task. Okay, and Azure Active Directory, in fact, I mean, when I say replacement, it's not like a complete replacement. I meant whatever and Windows Active Directory does, it can nowadays our Azure Active Directories can also do. But the purpose of Azure Active Directory is a little bit even more. Okay, it just think of it as a providing additional more features than that of your Windows Active Directory. So I mentioned about creating users, groups, device management, AD join. We discussed about AD connect here. We discussed about AD join here, and we also discussed about Azure AD B2B. Then we discussed about Azure AD B2C and all. And even apart from all these, right, we have a lot more features. We have self-service password reset, we have conditional access, and we have something called as uh, uh, privileged identity management. Okay, you can pull reports. Okay, so all these are there. So whatever I gave you was just a glimpse of certain services that Azure Active Directory offers. Okay, and then post which we discussed about various compliance certifications, and we discussed about privacy, and we discussed about trust portal. Okay, and then we discussed about service trust portal, right? And all. And I think we also discussed a little bit about policies. We created our own policies here, and we created a policy, right, wherein we said resources should be created only in East US, right? See, what do you think happens if you have already created a resource in West US, and then later you create a policy which says you'll have to create a resource in East US? So, what do you think will happen? Any idea? See, under such situation, right? So this resource that was created under West US, it will be shown as a non-compliant one. Okay, and then you will have to remediate it. You will have to take some actions. All right, and then comes your RBAC. So in RBAC, we discussed about providing access. So when we talked about access, we were actually talking about access with respect to you can give access at a subscription level, and you can give access at a subscription level, resource group level, or a resource level. So even for policies can be applied at a subscription level and at a resource group level, and not for a particular resource. Okay, and we then discussed a little bit about blueprint also. So blueprint is nothing but it is a template that defines your policy, and defines your access, that defines your resources that needs to be created, and all these over a single template. So when you want to create the same resource again, you can just keep on reusing this template so that the resources that you create are compliant with your organization's standard. Got it? And then we discussed about all this privacy and all, and then I think we discussed about the knowledge center, right? And yeah, correct. So we discussed about those previews, our knowledge center SLAs and all. Let me just scroll down. Okay. uh, Fine. Okay. Then we discussed about the knowledge center, and then we discussed about how to find out, the new updates, new features that are, what is a, preview. We have a private preview and we have a public preview, and what is the difference between a private preview and a public preview. And we also saw how to raise support request and what are the various plans the support request, offers, all your basic, developer standard and all. And then we also discussed about general availability. And what did I miss? Yes. And yeah, then we discussed about SLA, right? So this is just an very high level overview of your AZ-900. So I just wanted to give you a recap. And I suggest you can always go to uh, Microsoft Learn. Okay, so some of you were requesting for slides yesterday. So please go to docs.microsoft.com. So I'll just Microsoft Learn. Okay, so I'm just putting it here. Uh, so this is your Microsoft Learn. Hope you can see this now. Okay, so this is your Microsoft Learn. So you can go here, you can get the entire material for your AZ-900. So I assume that you have got a good understanding on the various Azure concepts. For you to take your exam, I personally suggest you to take up the exam, 2 weeks from today. That will definitely help you to clear your exam, because I have covered the entire content, but reading through the entire document once will definitely help you to clear AZ-900 certification. Got it? So please go ahead and read this entire content that you have on your Learn, MS Learn, and give your certifications within 2 weeks. You will definitely clear your certification. Got it? Now, I have few information for you. So those who are seeking for job and who are unemployed or furloughed due to this COVID, so you can secure an industry recognized Microsoft certification at a discounted rate of $15. And those who are taking the certification, you should schedule your exam before December 31st, and you will have until March 31st, 2021. Okay, so you will have to complete it before that. So for more information, you can just go here and then check it. This link is again, as part of your MS Learn. So I'm just going there. Fine. See, you have a lot of FAQs here, and how you can take up the certification and what all certification you can take up through this discounted, option. You can get all those details from here. Okay. So please do go through that. And okay. So you have a lot of, contents or materials to go through. Uh, at in your in LinkedIn Learning, and please do follow this master classes, and you can go through all the Microsoft official courses, and do go through the GitHub repositories, wherein you have a lot of uh, lab guides. Okay, you can just go through. So if at all you want to get started with Azure and how to do certain demos, you can go through there, go through that particular GitHub. All right, so go to your LinkedIn profile and then update it. If you're open to work, please do update it. And most importantly, most importantly, now that you know what Azure is, you have gained some understanding on Azure. So please go to the LinkedIn and then update your skills as Microsoft Azure. So this will definitely help you to you know help the employers to easily pick out your profile. Got it? So do go there and update your skill. It'll not take more than a minute. You can do that and see that you complete your certifications as quickly as you can and then update it in your LinkedIn profile. Okay. Um, so congratulations to you all for acquiring this skill on AZ-900. So I assume that these days of training, trainings have given you a good, oversight into this AZ-900 certification. Hope you all have got a good understanding on cloud and specifically Azure. And thank you so much for listening. And we have a session on data and AI uh, with our, SMEs happening next week. So please do register and attend that. Okay. Thanks once again.